Chapter 13. Over at South Lake Resort Island. It was a privately owned vacation spot located west of Town and was around 1,000 acres wide. Its land was surrounded by a pristine natural lake with an island in the middle. It had over $10 billion invested into the construction of five-star hotels and various entertainment facilities. It even had a variety of exotic plants transplanted there, making the island one of Town's most famous vacation sites. On that very day, Blake had the entire resort island reserved for only those who were invited. The resort was transformed into a large event space after a few days of decorating. There were tables and chairs adorned with fresh flowers, as well as all kinds of snacks and champagne. Wilbur parked outside South Lake and walked over to the island. Right at its front was the guests' check-in table, as well as the gift collection counter. Wilbur walked up to the table and tossed the $500 that he had prepared on it. "Here's my gift." The people at the table were all members of the Willow family. One of them saw that it was Wilbur and cast a disdainful glare at the money on the table. "Gosh, are you really this broke? Look at everyone else. Their gifts are worth tens of thousands of dollars. Don't you feel ashamed for giving such a paltry sum?" Wilbur chuckled and responded, "I had $50 million, but someone took it away and still refuses to pay me back to this day. 500 is all I have now." The event supervisor's expression darkened upon hearing those words and roared, "You bastard! Are you trying to cause a scene?" Wilbur replied with a deep voice, "Me? Cause a scene? That's what the Willow family's been doing." The supervisor sneered coldly, "Listen up, young men. If it hadn't been for Mr. Woods and Miss Yvonne's instructions, I would have beaten you to a pulp." "I don't quite believe that," Wilbur responded calmly. The few members of the Willow family next to the supervisor heard this and were about to get physical. However, the supervisor stopped them and said, "Today's Miss Yvonne's big day. Let him go for now. We'll get him when this is over. Find yourself a spot to sit. There's plenty to eat and drink. You should get back your money's worth," the manager mocked. Wilbur paid him no heed and walked in confidently. The supervisor, on the other hand, called Yvonne at once. Wilbur walked to the central region of the island. He got himself a glass of champagne before finding himself a spot to sit. It was 11 in the morning, and guests were still coming in. Some of them were people of power, and the check-in table announced their arrivals as a gesture of respect as well as to bask in their glory. Woods Corporate was rather famous in Town, being considered one of the bigger establishments in the city. The guests present that day were all people with high status. Blake and Yvonne approached Wilbur not long after he took his seat. Blake was in a deep red suit with his shiny hair slicked back. Meanwhile, Yvonne, who was clad in a skin-tight white dress, clutched onto Blake's arm blissfully. The pair walked up to Wilbur, and Blake spoke up with a smile. "I didn't think you'd have the guts to show up." "Well, I was invited. Naturally, I had to come and congratulate you too. After all, Yvonne and I were married in the past," Wilbur said calmly. Yvonne piped up at once. "Drop the disgusting stuff already. I invited you so you could see where you stand. It's time for you to see the truth and stop fantasizing about what we could still be." "I haven't thought of that since I left the Willows," Wilbur said. Yvonne scoffed. "Good. Sit tight and see for yourself what it means to have connections, power, and presence, you useless bastard." "I'll keep my eyes peeled for sure. I hope I won't be disappointed," Wilbur replied with a grin. Blake chuckled and said, "We won't let you down for sure. Everyone here is someone you can only dream of becoming. Enjoy the view while it lasts." After saying their piece, the pair exchanged a smile and walked off arm in arm. Wilbur shook his head. He took a sip of champagne, tasting nothing but bitterness. "CEO of the Cape Consortium headquarters in Cardin Province, Faive, has arrived." The announcement made the crowd burst out into applause. Cape Consortium's power was world-class, to the point where even the CEO of a certain branch was a pretty big deal. She was representing the Cape Consortium, after all. Blake and Yvonne stood by the check-in table, waiting for those important people to arrive. Upon Faye's arrival, the pair crowded up to her at once and led her to the main table at the banquet hall. Faye walked past the tables, catching Wilbur's eyes and exchanging smiles with him. After showing Faye her seat, Blake and Yvonne returned to the check-in table again to wait for the other guests. Just then, A tall and broad man came up to the check-in table with a few other men in tow. The man glanced at Blake and Yvonne and walked up to them at once. The supervisor deduced that Blake and Yvonne did not really know this man, so he hurried up to the guy at once. "Sir, are you looking for someone?" "I'm looking for Wilbur Penn," the man stated coldly. The supervisor was dumbfounded. He looked at Blake and Yvonne before saying, "Is something the matter?" Just then, one of the men's subordinates shouted, "This is the person in charge of Cardin Province's military, Gordon Grayson. Do I need to report to you what he wants to do?" The supervisor was caught off guard at once. That man was definitely someone powerful, but he was not on the guest list at all. Blake and Yvonne panicked as well, then quickly hurried over. "General Grayson, is there something you need from Wilbur?" The couple smirked to themselves internally. Surely Wilbur's relationship with someone so powerful could not be a good one. Gordon said coldly, "I've got some personal affairs to sort out with him. Don't worry, I won't be in the way of your wedding." The pair could hardly contain their surprise and glee upon hearing those words. Not only was Gordon not acquainted with Wilbur, but it was clear that there was bad blood between the two of them too. To think that Wilbur would have the nerve to offend a national general like Gordon Grayson. That man truly had a death wish. The couple rushed forward and led Gordon inside as they explained. "Wilbur Penn isn't related to us at all." "That's right. He's my ex-husband. He freeloaded off my family for 3 years, which led to our divorce. He insisted on coming today, refusing to take no for an answer, so we didn't have the heart to kick him out." Ugh. Yvonne made up stories as she spoke, terrified that she would be involved. Gordon waved a hand. "I don't need to know your story. I'm only here to settle things between me and him today." Blake smiled placatingly. All right. You can do whatever you want with him. He probably deserves to be taught a lesson from someone like you anyways." As he said that, the group reached Wilbur. "That's him. Do you need me to do anything?" Blake asked, eager to please. Gordon waved a hand. "That won't be necessary. I want to have a talk with him by myself. Go on with your business." "Yes, of course." The couple agreed hurriedly before saying to Wilbur, "You've really got some nerves, offending someone like General Grayson. You're done for." After saying that, the two of them bowed to Gordon and left. Just then, Gordon told his driver to wait outside and said, "Don't interrupt me unless it's a call from headquarters." After giving his orders, he sat down across Wilbur by himself. "Is there anything you'd like to say?" Gordon asked Wilbur coldly. Important note. Chapter 14. The next chapter's voiceover is going to be different as I made it way back when I was still experimenting what kind of voice to use for the story. It should be back to this kind of voice after several chapters. Thank you for understanding and patronizing the story.